moderating the discussion today. But I think just before we go into the technical details of the event, let me just set some of the housekeeping rules. This event is being live streamed on Twitter, Facebook, and LinkedIn. Those who have joined us online are encouraged to turn on their cameras while they're speaking, as long as the network allows them to do so. And the event will also be recorded, and the video and the recording will be posted online. You'll always feel free to revisit the discussion and let us know if you have any further comments or suggestions. And we also invite questions from our audience that is joining us both in person as well as online. Feel free to raise your hands. We can allow you to directly talk as well, or you can also post the questions in the Q&A chat box as well. So I think with this, I'll be directly going towards Dr. Khalid Waleed for his welcome remarks. Over to you, Dr.
Thank you so much, Hubad. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us at this very important event where we are stock taking for renewable energy sources, resources, efforts, and policies for year 2024. These 2 or 3 years, past years, have been very difficult, not just for Pakistan, for global scenario as well, particularly in terms of poly crisis, in terms of rising inflation, in terms of Russia-Ukraine war that resulted in higher energy prices. Then the debate started whether we need accessible energy sources, affordable energy sources, or the sustainable energy sources. Well, the economics or economics of sustainability calls for sustainable renewable energy sources, but the current circumstances, which are based on this capitalist market approach, that calls for a balance between affordability, accessibility, and sustainability. So what we need to do is we need to look for that balance, particularly for the context of developing countries, where takeaways from COP28 are that we need an orderly and just energy transition, which is focused more on the just part than the sustainability part. We need to balance that as well. In terms of COP28, there was wording on fossil fuel that we need to transition away from the fossil fuels. We need to triple our renewable energy. We need to double our energy efficiency. We need to completely phase out those inefficient subsidies that were given to fossil fuels. Then hydrogen standards. What would be the role of gender in just energy transition? That is very important. And what are different incentivization schemes, particularly in the realm of carbon markets, in the realm of transitioning credits, and so on and so forth. So we need to cater for these global scenarios and global pictures as well. But we need to narrow it down to Pakistan, where the policy environment, where the government landscape is not in the favor of expanding the capacity of renewable energy. If you see the electricity generation profile, power generation profile of Pakistan, you'll see that capacity is enough. What we need to focus, what we need to fight for is we need to transform this existing electricity generation profile in the favor of renewable energy, wind and solar, so that it would become affordable, accessible, and sustainable at the same time. So what we need to do is we need to look for the debate on addition versus transformation, where the focus is not just on addition, but the transformation as well. We need to focus on capacity expansion versus the effective management of energy system, energy sector, and that would be the bureaucratic structure, that would be governance structure of energy sector. Again, we need to have an autonomous regulator that can regulate the sector, all the key component. We need modern and digitized grid. And lastly, we need to incorporate the principles of corporate governance across the energy sector so that we can run energy sector like a corporate entity, keeping the balance between affordability, sustainability, and accessibility. And I have already said the last, but finally, we need a new cadre, particularly maybe at foreign ministry, maybe at energy ministry, which can advocate and vouch for bringing international finance to the energy sector of Pakistan in terms of just energy transition partnerships, in terms of ETM mechanisms, in terms of all the mechanisms that can cater to financing renewable energy. Finance is there. What we need to do is we need to put our house in order first and then attract more and more financing, not from the public or G2G sources, but private sector as well. With that thought, I would leave it to the experts. Thank you so much for joining us here. Thank you so much.
Yes, thank you so much, Dr. Khalid, for highlighting the opportunities, as well as how we can sort of think to go about it as well. So I think just taking lead from some of the points that you mentioned, I think definitely also taking lead from the concept note we have over here, that some of the very key events that just happened recently includes the COP28 as well. There have been a lot of debate about the overall low carbon development at the Third Belt and Road Forum as well. So now I think we've also been joined by Akil Jafri Saab. I mean, if we just look at the landscape of energy sector in Pakistan over the past few years, especially since 2019, there has been some, on the policy front, there has been some key developments, taking lead from the ARE policy to the introduction of CTBCM. There has been NEP as well. And just recently, we had the fast tracking solar initiative as well, and a couple of more as well. But again, just linking that to the reality that the current capacity of the renewable energy in Pakistan is still somewhere less, even less than 7% of the total capacity as well. So perhaps we need to come up with something. I mean, even if we look as of now, even despite having that, there is a push from the government for the renewable energy sector, we're still not able to go about it as well. So I think a lot needs to be discussed further, but I think with this, we'll be actually moving towards a technical presentation here from Ethasam Ahmed. He's from Renewables First, and will be presenting the case of leveraging additional financing for renewable energy in Pakistan. So once again, Ethasam, thank you so much for joining us, and over to you. And once Ethasam is done, we'll be going towards a roundtable discussion format. So yes, over to you, Ethasam. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth.
Yeah, okay. So
Yeah. So, as all of us know that the Pakistan's renewable energy paradigm, it has shifted considerably over the past decade. There have been policy interventions. The technology has improved. The cost of bringing renewable to mainstream has gone down. And that's why it is important to now seriously think of this intervention as imperative. The integration right now is it's in the discourse, but the progress is limited. I'll move on to the presentation. Where, if you can move on to the
you
next.
have a slider on there.
Yes, sorry.
Slider.
So I'll first run you guys through the contents of this presentation. We have done a historical mapping of utility scale projects in the solar and wind segment. We have mapped out the key stakeholders, the financing required up until 2031, and avenues for financing, innovative instruments, and the policy recommendations. So if you could see on the graph on the slide, the financing flow in the renewable sector has been fluctuating, and the primary blame for this goes to the lack of policy continuity. Up until 2015, there was an upward trend, yet there was a shift of focus towards thermal projects, and you can see that renewable financing has come down considerably. Key players in the sector, these are the players that have the majority stake in the sector in terms of financing. Chinese banks are a key player in Pakistan's power ecosystem, but their involvement in the renewable sector is limited. They are primarily focused on the thermal segment, but China has plans to phase out international investment in coal, and Pakistan can capitalize on this opportunity and mobilize these surplus funds into its renewable sector. Multilateral banks have been involved in Pakistan's power sector over decades. Their co-lending facilities are key to making projects bankable. Private equity players, conglomerates, especially in the textile sector, family offices, have had a considerable interest in setting up IPPs in the country. They have a significant footprint in the renewable space. Banking sector is key to mobilizing the domestic financing for the sector. alongside sovereign guarantees. Sovereign guarantees are probably the single most important factor in making these projects bankable. But there are limitations to it, given that the government has a sovereign guarantee cap of 2% of the GDP. And then there is a room for private guarantee providers, but their involvement is limited to distributed generation projects and not utility scale solar or wind projects. As per NTDC's own estimate, given the capacity additions that it has forecasted, there is a gap of around 52 billion up until 2031 that needs to be filled in terms of financing. RF's own estimate is that this figure is considerably, like, it's an underestimation. We estimate that the forecasted amount would be around 100 billion to 108 billion. And to mobilize these funds, the existing sources have been exhausted, and it is important to look elsewhere into innovative financing instruments. These are some instruments that can be deployed. We'll be delving deeper into the philanthropic side of it, institutional investors, and project aggregation. Other than that, there are concessional loans, which we have already discussed, that multilateral development banks are a key player in that. Government also offers domestic concessional financing. Alternates to sovereign guarantees, private guarantors like Infazamin and Guaranteco are examples of what can be done if the private sector is involved in the guarantee mechanism. Investment bonds, sustainability bonds, green bonds have been deployed in the market, but there is still room for mobilizing further funds through this mechanism. Open banking and climate fintech is at a nascent stage. It's relatively at a nascent stage globally. Innovative models like crowd lending and crowdfunding can help tap the retail financial base, but it needs policy intervention and considerable work. Debt swaps, again, are a model that has been deployed globally. Pakistan is an ideal case for that, given our sovereign debt burden. Yet the mechanism, the pathway for this needs to be defined, and there needs to be certain fiscal and government discipline to execute such instruments. So, philanthropic public-private partnership. Firstly, we need to understand what this term means. What is this model? So, public-private partnership, I'm assuming that everyone understands. It's widely understood. Adding philanthropy to the mix means that philanthropy essentially brings in that patient capital, that ability to enhance knowledge, capacity building of the public and the private sector, and developing that ecosystem around which the public-private partnerships can work. They have the ability to generate results, better results, disseminate information that otherwise in the public-private model is missing. There's this study from McKinsey, if you could just see the graph. So power sector remains a key area where this model can be deployed, and the benefits of it can be considerable. Institutional investors like mutual funds and insurance companies, they have massive liquidity pools in trillions of rupees, yet most of it is either invested in government papers or low risk securities because of the risk averse nature, as well as the limited regulatory space that they are being provided with. If we are able to mobilize these funds through sustainable bonds or other financial instruments, these represent a great opportunity to finance renewable projects, given the amount of liquidity that is held with this sector. At a more granular level, the pooled investment vehicles can actually make small development projects bankable. So renewable energy for local developers, for small developers, uh, it is uh, it is quite difficult to raise financing from conventional methods like banking and other and the capital markets. But the infographic on the left of the slide essentially displays a specimen model. It is an Indian company, Integrid, that is the first pool investment vehicle in the country, and they have successfully deployed this model with the help of sponsors, and they have actually democratized the investment landscape of renewable energy in the country. Uh, they have expanded on the retail investor base and have utilized the ability to uh, mobilize small ticket investors into the renewable space. However, for the success of all these instruments, uh, there needs to be some sort of policy intervention. There needs to be government needs to show some sort of discipline. Otherwise, this this does not make sense in any case. So we have laid out three important points that the needs immediate attention. I'd say these are firefighting measures that need to be deployed for effective development of a financial landscape in the renewable sector. Firstly, as we all are aware of the fact that Pakistan, like the government in Pakistan, has a never-ending appetite for deficit financing. So what that does is that it actually crowds out the private credit market. So it would be impossible for the private credit market to develop if the government is the sole borrower. So if there is fiscal discipline, there is room for the private credit market to grow, then only can we deploy all these instruments. Market liberalization, CTBCM, a lot have been discussed about it, but the financing side of it is that when you actually let the market forces work, it allows for the investors, the private investors, to mobilize their own financing, to capitalize domestic avenues, to bring in foreign capital uh, according to their own ability, rather than depending on G2G contracts on the government to and honestly, the contracts that government secures aren't the ideal ones. Like all of us know here that these aren't the best contracts that can be secured. The private sector has the capability to secure more competitive contracts. Lastly, strengthening domestic capital markets. So, if you have been following news flow, there has been a sukuk issue at the Pakistan Stock Exchange. What that does is it actually tests the depth of the capital market. You are able to mobilize funds from private investors, retail investors, domestic savers who don't have much, like they have the commodities like gold and other national savings certificates to invest in. But these investments can be rerouted towards project financing and specifically renewable financing if the right framework is offered and also if the right incentives are offered. So this, I think this we try to actually encapsulate the whole landscape in a few slides. There is a lot to be discussed around it, but this gives you a snapshot of where we are at right now. Thank you.
Yes, wonderful. Thank you so much, Atasam. I think this sets a very good scene. I would actually request everyone to sort of keep the debate today around what Atasam has already mentioned regarding the financing, how policy interventions are extremely important if we have to go forward. So I think what we can actually do is we can start with the private sector to initially let us know their reviews, and along with this, any additional points they have to make around the financing aspect as well. So perhaps we can initially start with Tanveer Mirza Saab from UEP Wind Power Division. Tanveer Saab, you have been listening to the very insightful and technical presentation by Atasam, and you have been working in the sector, I think, since very long. So if you have any interventions or any remarks, because this is exactly sort of the time that we actually need them. So yes, over to you, Tanveer Saab. Thank you.
Thank you much. Ubaid, are you able to hear me now?
You're perfectly audible.
Thank you, Vamsu. Uh, First of all, again, thank you so much for organizing such a good seminar in terms that we have to be more focused as far as renewable energy concerned. The issue of finance is not related specifically to any sector. Actually, if we are talking about Pakistan specifically, then the socio-economic policies of Pakistan have to be improved in such a way that the foreign or even the local investors invest in any sector. If we are talking about renewable energy sector, as Assam has said, local financing is a little bit difficult unless until we have to involve the foreign lenders into it. So how the foreign lender will come into Pakistan if the socio-economic scenario of Pakistan is not stable? So this is something which we have to look into this, because the finance of any project, and especially the renewable energy projects. For example, currently, if you are talking about a 50 megawatt of wind power project, so it could be around within the limit of $100 million. Okay, maybe little less or more, whatever. So $100 million of investment from a local or a foreign entity needs some stability from the government side, from the financial institutes, as well as then we have to have very strong policies. Policies, for example, we've said that renewable energy sector, and especially the wind power or solar, these are must-run projects. But unfortunately, due to various issues, these are not the must-run projects at the moment. We have to have full deliberations from each and every sector from the government side to sincerely consider that whether we wanted to use renewable energy projects as a must-run project or not. In this scenario, I believe the finance part, if we look as some have mentioned, in 2015, it has revolutionized our whole sector of renewable energy. For example, why I'm saying revolution, because it's not only the foreign investors, but the local investors from different other sectors of Pakistan industry. They have come up to invest into the renewable energy sector. If you look at the wind power sector at the moment, then you find the names of Gul Ahmad, Sapphire, Lucky, so many of the other things, who are primarily are investing their money into different other sectors. But in 2015, so many people have come up. Even now, the international institutions also came up to invest in Pakistan. But now, unfortunately, the tables have turned very drastically towards this aspect, that the local or the foreign investors are not coming into Pakistan. So we have to find out the reasons on this, especially the policymakers, as well as the distribution in the evacuation system have to be improved. I have, I think previously I have said one more important thing is that when we are going to make the policies from the government side, we all are contributing into that, and we are love to have, because this is our country and we wanted to prosper this country. So especially for such sector, I mean the power sector, because this is the lifeline or the blood of all the economy. So if we have to make a policy, I think it is important that such policies should not be changed over many, many years, so that any government will come and they will bind from the previous government that, okay, they don't have to touch this sector especially for its continuity and for its stability. So this is what I want to say. Thank you, Ben.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Tanveer Saab. Very well highlighted, all the points very well noted as well. So I think initially we'll also take some remarks from Fahim Ashraf Saab. He also represents the solar energy sector, and then we'll be coming to.
Assalamualaikum. My opinion on this is that in Pakistan, we need, there have been few segments in which these small scale financing have been done. What we see in Pakistan, we talk about very big investment, and I've been part of it. We wanted to have install 20 megawatt, but what I see in Pakistan, the big projects takes a lot of time. So we should continue on the big project, but our focus should be on a small scale project or medium sized scale project. What I would say, we should convert Pakistan roof by roof to solar. And if we have the investment, like few years ago, there was a state bank scheme, 6% financing, that is not available. But now even at the Khyber, plus 2%, I have been working on few IPPs. It still make break even in 2 to 3 years. Even with the current rates, because your electricity cost, if we make an analysis, is between 78 rupees, 60 rupees, even 90 rupees in some areas. So what our focus should be, that we should encourage medium size PPA. We should encourage small size PPA. What the bank should do, what I heard, it's remind me of my university days, but in Pakistan, to get the fund, we need lot of authorizations, like corporate housing. We cannot get the funds from here. What you can do, what you can propose, the banks should be more lenient towards that. It's more secure, more investment. And it can address many issues in my perspective. What most of you might know, in Pakistan, energy is not a problem. Transmission is a problem. If we have different roof, different size, then the current, it's not a long-term solution, but current infrastructure can sustain for next 10 years more. The cost of electricity, we should focus on energy mix. For example, this building, for example, any building, any university, we should make plan for so that the developers, the IPPs, they can get easy financing. What used to be had USA clean energy loan, it was only available for the bigger projects. And the bigger projects was not actually executing in Pakistan. Because when it comes to a bigger scale projects, then so many departments and so many feasibilities and so slow process happen, people get rid of it. If we remember our policies, we should learn from our past that we started in AADB in 2012, 2013 to have a solar project, more than 1,000 LOIs came. All the investor came. They just want result. We don't want 1 year, 2 years, 4 years. After 10 years, only 4 or 5 actually been executed on the paper. We should see where it should lag. Now, what I should say, we can have a PPA models that can be learned on it. And we should also come up with 7 to 10 years transfer BOT model. If our policies, like one very good idea I see in the presentation, that the mutual funds have lot of funds. So we need to give them the presentation of the stable income that can be run from a small 500 kilowatt project, 1 megawatt project. Just imagine 500 kilowatt project to 1 megawatt project. All educational institute are your target market. All hospitals are your target market. If you add up all those, it might be more than 3,000, 4,000 megawatt, even much more than that. It's just we need to, I never say do not focus on a bigger scale project. But having work experience in Pakistan, it's very rare that actual bigger project actually come at the end of it. But if we focus on a small scale project, maybe we can deliver 10 times more in a half time. That is my opinion. And hand over to you.
Yes, thank you so much, Fahim Saab, for also highlighting sort of a parallel perspective here as well. So I think we have talked about, again, policy discontinuity, some non-compliances with the policy clauses as well, and think a lot of very key important measures highlighted by Fahim Ashraf Saab as well. So I think just let me read one of the comments we have actually received online. It's from a Norwegian company representative. He has mentioned that as we navigate the investment landscape in the region, we have encountered certain procedural delays that pose a significant challenge for foreign investors like our company. Despite the presence of institutions like SIFC and others, the ease of doing business appears to be a key concern. So, if anyone can shed some light on specific measures and initiatives that are being considered or implemented to streamline and expedite the investment procedures. So, I think before again going to Akil Saab, we can also have one opinion from any of the representative from a think tank or a civil society that wants to uh, pitch in something over here, and then we can also go towards Akil Jafri Saab from PPIB as well. So yes, if yeah, please, Mustafa, go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shubhat. So yeah, I think the discourse so far has been pretty good in the sense that we understand where the problem is. Uh, Policy issues, inconsistencies हो रही हैं, that is not something that is new.
Yes.
But even back in 2015, जब market boom कर रही थी या हम peak कर रहे थे या the reason we had to transition away from the upfront tariff to an auction mechanism essentially was because the government wanted more control because there was so much interest in the market to invest in renewables. From that position to आज कि हम 600 मेगावाट के project पे बार-बार advertise कर रहे हैं, bid नहीं आ रही, there something went wrong in that period, right? And essentially what went wrong is कि हमने एक market development से निकल के we are looking for easy money essentially. हमने market नहीं बनानी, हमने plate पे एक 600 मेगावाट का project रखना है और हमने वो देना है किसी foreign country को कि आए इस पे invest करे. Yes, it's a huge quantum. Yes, we need that 600 megawatt right now. But as Fahim Saab said, essentially the market can deliver that in shorter time, can deliver that at similar rates. And in doing so, एक पूरी value chain बनेगी projects की. अगर 10 project लगते हैं उस 600 megawatt में तो 10 teams hire होंगी, 10 supply chains बनेंगी, एक local economy बनेगी, जो profit है वो यहाँ पे होगी. अभी तक जितनी हमारी wind energy की industry है वो सारी locals ने बनाई है, investors वो खुद लेके आए हैं, and international investors that the government couldn't honestly tap into, वो लोग आए, उन्होंने पैसे लगाए, अपनी investment की, equity डाली, and an industry boomed off. But for that to work, essentially the market needs to be developed. Market को चाहिए positive signals. Signals come from policy consistency. चाहे वो पॉलिसी अच्छी हो या बुरी हो, बट अगर कंसिस्टेंट हो तो मार्केट अपना वर्क अराउंड निकाल लेती है. ARE पॉलिसी आई, मार्केट वाज रेडी टू इन्वेस्ट अंडर दैट पॉलिसी. एक चेंज था, जाहिर है ऑक्शन का मैकेनिज्म आना था, थोड़ा टाइम लगता है, डिलेज हैं, बट उसके बाद अगर हम फिर फास्ट ट्रैक ले आते हैं, एक पैरेलल मैकेनिज्म आ जाता है. आजकल SIFC है, आई एम श्योर द नॉर्वेजियन रिप्रेजेंटेटिव इजंट अलोन इन दिस grievances. काफी हमारे तक भी जो चीजें शेयर होती हैं वो यही होती हैं कि we don't know who to approach essentially, because और वही बात के इन्वेस्टर वर्सेस डेवलपर का कॉन्सेप्ट भी बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है. जब आप सारी एवरीथिंग इज नोन टू मी, आई नो व्हाट आई एम गेटिंग इनटू, मुझे पता है मुझे क्या रिटर्न मिलना है. एक पैरेलल मार्केट है जहाँ पे मैं 2-3 साल जाऊंगा, मैं उस मार्केट में अपने डिफरेंट हॉटस्पॉट्स आइडेंटिफाई करूंगा, मैं compete करूंगा, एक पाइपलाइन बनेगी प्रोजेक्ट्स की, मेरे पैसे लगे होंगे. फॉर मी टू even get less money out of that market, I am essentially a developer. मुझे it makes sense for me. As an investor जो बाहर बैठा हुआ है, जिससे पता है कि अच्छा मैं इसमें इन्वेस्ट करूंगा तो 13% 14% फिक्स रिटर्न है, और एक पैरेलल मार्केट है साउथ ईस्ट एशिया की जिसमें पॉलिसी कंसिस्टेंसी भी गारंटीड है, पॉलिटिकल कंसिस्टेंसी भी गारंटीड है, बेशक रिटर्न कम हो, बट आई नो माय मनी इज मोर सिक्योर इन दैट मार्केट. सो इन्वेस्टर विल गो देयर, developers will work in Pakistan, and developers need a market, and I think that's the concern that we are missing right now.
Thank you so much, Mustafa. I think with this I'll be going towards Akil Saab. You with us? Yes.
जी युवत,
Ji, Akil Saab, with this context, I'll be coming to you if you have anything to highlight at this point. Yes, thank you so
Gee,
much.
thank you, Beth. Thank you for inviting me and giving me the opportunity. I think I've heard what the participants have shared their views, and in a way, they are right. There are some issues, even if the policies that have been made and that are presently in vogue, the policies are right, but we have not been able to implement the policies in a right manner. The focus has remained on large scale projects, whereas जब तक market CTBC में properly implement नहीं होता, that will I think pave the way for the distributed generation, especially with the involvement of the local investors. Market liberalization ही वो रास्ता है that will pave the way for the private financing and the domestic capital market to flourish. Although we would be requiring large-scale projects, even along with the development of distributed generation, because DISCOs being these suppliers of last resort will have to procure power for the demand in order to meet the demand of the country. Or that is the only way that induction of cheaper electricity will be the only way to lower the electricity prices for the consumers. But there are certain issues जो time to time rise होते रहते हैं. जिस तरह एक point raise किया गया कि 2015 में भी बड़ा interest था, and the interest should have grown, and in fact it has grown more amongst the private investors to invest in the renewable energy sector. But then there was a period of COVID. Post COVID अभी जो हमने experience रहा है, 2 दफा हमने 600 megawatt के project को bid किया है. I think the structure was right. There was interest from the local as well as international investors. They want to invest, but what was the issue? Non-availability of financing. Pakistan case was your current fiscal plus somewhat political condition hai. Uski wajah se it is very hard to get financing for such a large project. Even for a smaller project, it's not easy. What we are hearing from the market, जो financing available भी है, जिस rate पर available है, it's not viable at all. So I think it is a matter of time, and with that, along with that, there are also some, at times we are do things in a bit of a hurry. We need to tackle all the obstacles which are there in the development of the projects. Abhi, what the issue we are facing right now is that the ARE policy came. It said that we have to do first round of bidding amongst the residual projects of the 2006 policy, what we call the category 3 projects. We prepared everything: the RFP, the bidding documents, the agreements. For solar, we have also identified the sites, but for the wind, the issue is that the existing wind farms are facing curtailment at the moment. So how can, although there is space available in that local grid of Jampir, but we cannot evacuate power from south to north. That is why we cannot add more wind power currently in that grid. So we have to find a way out of that. So grid ke issues hain. IGSEP aa gaya tha. IGSEP was there. The second iteration came. There was some, concerns on observations on that IGSEP 2, but at least there was a document. But that did not उसके साथ जो main requirement थी एक TSEP की transmission expansion plan की, that was not there, and that is the issue that we need evacuation. Even if we want to develop the projects at the earliest, we need to have evacuation certainty, and that builds up the risk for the investors and the lenders also. So the way forward is that we need to resolve the issues in our transmission and distribution system. Then only then we would be able to get some good financing from the international market. साथ साथ जिस तरह बात हुई कि domestic market को distributed generation को promote, the government is promoting that, and it will flourish, I think, once the CTBCM is announced, the wheeling structure is announced, the wheeling charges, everything is announced by NEPRA, and local markets को crowd financing, financing by philanthropies, वो flourish करेगी, और automatically private sector instead of government, specifying कि जी ये mode होना चाहिए, इसका ये financing structure होना चाहिए, it should be left to the private sector कि they develop their own mechanisms, B2B contracts, PPP based contracts, lease based installations. वो private sector should be doing that. और जैसे ही market announce होती है, I think that will pave the way for distributed generation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Akil Saab. So I think if any of our prior speakers have any responses to any of the points that Akil Saab mentioned or any of the points that other speakers mentioned, Sam, Dr. Khalid, if anyone would like to add anything at this point. Yeah.
I absolutely agree with what Akil Saab has to say. And again, the point of the presentation, the panelists have also stated that it is important to mobilize private sector credit, private sector financing. We cannot leave it to the government to arrange for financing for all these projects. There won't be any scalability. A market won't develop. So again, I would like to reiterate this point that deploying innovative instruments, deploying private sector credit is the key for developing this market. The government's role is only limited to the policy interventions, not actively overseeing the market and being involved in every stage of it. So yeah, I second the opinion of my panelists.
Thank you. Dr. Saab, yes, please.
Just being a theoretical economist or capitalist market advocate, I would say let the market run. Let the market run freely so that the private players can jump in. And with the policy consistency. Yeah, thank you.
Yes, Tanveer Saab, you raised your hand if you'd like to add anything, please go ahead.
Thank you very much, Ubed. I fully agree with this, but मेरा सिर्फ और सिर्फ एक humble opinion difference of opinion भी बनता है और वो ये बनता है कि देखिए इस वक्त at this current stage of time हमें अपना focus power प्रोडक्शन पे नहीं लेके जाना, हमने अपना फोकस ट्रांसमिशन और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन पे लेके जाना है। हमें वो पैरामीटर्स लेने चाहिए कि जहां पे हमारी इन्वेस्टमेंट्स जो हैं ट्रांसमिशन और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नेटवर्क को इंप्रूव करें, क्योंकि इस वक्त देखें बार बार हम सारे जानते हैं कि इस वक्त हमारे पास इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी जो है वो 41,000 मेगावाट की है, जबकि हमारी जो कंजम्पशन है वो 29,000 मेगावाट की है, वो भी पीक समर के अंदर कुछ दिनों में। विंटर में आके ये बिल्कुल ड्रास्टिकली 50% पे चली जाती। तो ऐसी सूरत में अगर हमारे पास ट्रांसमिशन और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन के मैकेनिज्म को इम्प्रूव हम नहीं कर सकेंगे, जैसे अभी अकील साहब ने भी फरमाया कि मैं अगर ज्यादा स्पेसिफिक जाऊं तो लेट्स फॉर एग्जांपल कि ये हमने जो लाहौर मिटियारी ट्रांसमिशन लाइन बनाई थी डीसी पावर के, हम उसको पूरी तरीके से यूटिलाइज नहीं कर सके क्योंकि हमारे पास आगे का जो ग्रिड है सेंटर में वो अभी तक के कामयाब नहीं हो सका। तो मतलब इश्यूज हैं। तो इसीलिए मैं ये समझता हूं कि करंट स्टेट ऑफ माइंड में हमको पावर प्रोजेक्ट्स के बजाय ट्रांसमिशन और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन में जाना चाहिए। पॉलिसीज के ऊपर सब लोगों ने कहा पॉलिसी होनी चाहिए, लेकिन जब आप देखेंगे नेपरा की जो इकोनॉमिक रिपोर्ट है उसमें हमारा जो कंजम्पशन का लोड है ऑलमोस्ट कोई 90% के करीब जो है वो हाउस होल्ड कंज्यूमर्स हैं। हमारा इंडस्ट्रियल और कमर्शियल लोड तो बनता ही नहीं है जो कि 24 घंटे चलना चाहिए। तो हमें अपने इंडस्ट्रियल और कमर्शियल लोड को भी लेके चलना पड़ेगा। और मैं एक रिक्वेस्ट, ऑनेस्ट और हम्बल रिक्वेस्ट गवर्नमेंट के साथ ये करूंगा कि काइंडली एक रियल टाइम एनालिसिस करवा लें उन सारे आईपीपीस का जो कि पावर प्रोडक्शन में शामिल हैं। क्या हर कोई पावर प्रोड्यूस कर रहा है या उसमें से कुछ स्टेगनेंट हैं और कुछ जो हैं वो उसलिए रखे हुए हैं कि जब जरूरत पड़ेगी तो उनको ऑन कर लेंगे, ताकि एक रियल टाइम डाटा हमारे पास आ जाए। अभी अगर मैं जैसे पहले भी मैंने कहा, अगर मैं 41,000 कहता हूं कि हमारे पास इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी है, तो इज इट 100% 41,000 मेगावाट ऑफ इंस्टॉल कैपेसिटी, या खाली वो आईपीपी जो 20 साल पहले के लगे हुए थे, 25 साल पहले के लगे थे, वो अभी तक के स्टैग्नेंट है, लेकिन वो हैं तो हैं। So this is are my comments. Thank you very much.
Yes, Fahim sir, please.
There are two things. One thing I will like to highlight, transmission पे जरूर काम करना चाहिए, लेकिन I think you must know कि 24% of Pakistan population is living without grid. तकरीबन 88,000 हाउस होल्ड अकॉर्डिंग टू नेपरा है, तो उस पर तो काम होना चाहिए। लेकिन एक चीज़ जो आप पॉइंट मिस कर रहे हैं, बीइंग इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट, जितनी बड़ी बड़ी इंडस्ट्रीज़ हैं वो पाकिस्तान छोड़ के जा रही हैं ड्यू टू इलेक्ट्रिसिटी। हम एग्जांपल दे सकते हैं, लॉरेंसपुर की फैक्ट्री हुआ करती थी हसन अब्दाल में, यहाँ से शिफ्ट करके बांग्लादेश चले गए, वहाँ से चाइना चले गए। जितने बड़े बड़े इंडस्ट्रियल यूनिट हैं वो चले जा रहे हैं। अब जो इंडस्ट्रियलिस्ट है या जो प्राइवेट सेक्टर है, उसको कॉस्ट ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी बहुत मैटर करती है। अगर वो आप उसको कांस्टेंट इलेक्ट्रिसिटी नहीं दे रहे तो उसने जनसेट लगाना है। जब उसने जनसेट लगाना है तो उसकी कॉस्ट ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, क्योंकि आपके पास डीजल पे आप जा रहे हो या गैस पे जा रहे हो, जो कि 300% आपने प्राइस इंक्रीज कर दी, 300%, तो उसकी कॉस्ट पर यूनिट 100 रुपया 200 रुपया पर यूनिट है। तो अगर आपकी इलेक्ट्रिसिटी की कॉस्ट ही ऐसी नहीं है जिस पे इंडस्ट्री चल सके, तो वो आपका डेफिनेटली एट द एंड ऑफ द डे हाउस होल्ड ही मेजर कंज्यूमर रह जाएंगे। तो इसमें मेरे पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू से ट्रांसमिशन के ऊपर मैंने तो पहले कहा था कि ट्रांसमिशन के इश्यूज है, उसमें माइक्रो ग्रिड्स को भी देखना चाहिए और चीज़ों को भी देखना चाहिए, दैट इज़ अ डिफरेंट पार्ट। पर जो सबसे की इंपॉर्टेंट फैक्टर है, हाउ टू मेक एनर्जी मिक्स जिसमें आपकी कॉस्ट ऑफ इलेक्ट्रिसिटी रिड्यूस और उसमें फाइनेंसिंग कैसे प्ले कर सकती है।
Yes, thank you so much, Fahim Saab as well as Tanveer Mirza Saab. Tanveer Saab, very well noted about the point on the शायद focus हमारा generation side पे ही है. So definitely let's take this forward, I think. But at this time, Aruj Asghar Saab wants to sort of come in, and Aruj Asghar Saab, we really expect you to be as candid as you want. So please go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, everyone, for arranging such a wonderful meeting. I usually don't speak on such occasions क्योंकि मेरे बड़े नेगेटिव व्यूज हैं और मेरे दोस्त मुझे कहते हैं कि मैं काफ़ी बागी हो गया हूँ इस सेक्टर से। Anyways, I am in power sector since 2000, so मैंने बहुत सारे अप्स एंड डाउन्स देखे हैं, तो मेरे व्यूज नेगेटिव हैं, प्लीज डोंट माइंड। लेकिन ये है कि उबैद ने मुझे कहा कि इवन देन आप एक्सप्रेस कर दें। एक्चुअली द मेन इशू इज कि आज के दिन पावर सेक्टर पाकिस्तान में इन्वेस्टमेंट क्लाइमेट नहीं है। काइबोर इज 22%, बैंक्स हमें इंटरेस्ट रेट्स दे रहे हैं 20%, 25% आपको डिपॉजिट इनकम मिल जाती है। अगर मैं आज इन्वेस्टमेंट करता हूं तो मुझे 12% ROE मिलता है। यही फंड्स अगर मैं बैंक में रहने देता हूं तो मुझे जो है वो 20% डिपॉजिट इंटरेस्ट इनकम मिलती है। एज एन इन्वेस्टर, व्हाट वुड बी माय प्रेफरेंस? आप कहते हैं डेट टू इक्विटी रेशो पे आप 70-30 कर लें और 70% डेट लें, दैट इज 22%। इफ दैट इज अ पास थ्रू देन इट इज वायबल। मोस्ट ऑफ द केसेस जब आप करते हैं डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड सोलर या B2B केसेस में करते हैं, तो जो इन्वेस्टर होता है वो इंटरेस्ट रेट एब्जॉर्ब कर रहा होता है। रिसेंटली कुछ कंपनीज ने काइबोर को B2B केसेस में पास थ्रू किया है। अब आपका 30% इक्विटी है, 30% इक्विटी पे आपको बैंक्स में 20% पे आपको डिपॉजिट इनकम मिलती है, लेकिन आप इन्वेस्टमेंट करते हैं तो आपको 12-13% आपको मिलेगा। तो इन टर्म्स ऑफ इन्वेस्टमेंट क्लाइमेट, जब तक इंटरेस्ट रेट कम नहीं होंगे तब तक आप इस वक्त इन्वेस्टमेंट अट्रैक्ट नहीं कर सकते। ये तो मोस्ट इंपॉर्टेंट थिंग है। सेकेंडली, बैंक्स का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है। बैंक्स, अगर आप B2B के केसेस में अगर आप बैंक्स को अप्रोच करते हैं तो बैंक्स आपसे सिक्योरिटी मांगते हैं। यू हैव टू गिव अ पर्सनल गारंटी और यू हैव टू अरेंज अ गारंटी फ्रॉम USAID, ग्रैंड कोर, इंफ्राजामिन। वो कॉस्टली हैं। आप उसमें क्या है कि आपको एट टाइम्स आपको पर्सनल प्रॉपर्टीज प्लेज करनी होती हैं। जो ओनर्स होते हैं, बहुत सी कुछ कंपनीज हैं जिन्होंने बहुत अच्छा परफॉर्म किया, उन्होंने USAID से भी गारंटीज ली हैं, ग्रैंड से ली हैं, लेकिन वो उसकी कॉस्ट है। होना क्या चाहिए कि आपकी जो आप B2B केस करते हैं, तो जो इंडस्ट्रियल यूनिट है उसको बैंक ने जब लोन दिया हुआ है तो बैंक उसकी बैलेंस शीट पे आपको लोन प्रोवाइड करे और कोई सिक्योरिटीज प्रोवाइड, एडिशनल सिक्योरिटी नहीं मांगनी चाहिए रिन्यूएबल कंपनी से। तो बैंक्स का रोल बहुत इंपॉर्टेंट है, जहां पे बैंक्स जो हैं वो आपको एडिशनल सिक्योरिटी ना मांगे और सिर्फ उस जो क्लाइंट है उसकी जो, फॉर इंस्टेंस मैं आपको एग्जांपल देता हूँ, आपकी SDPI सोलर कंपनी है, ये अगर इंस्टॉल करती है एक और मैरियट होटल पे, अगर आप सोलराइजेशन करते हैं फॉर इंस्टेंस, तो सोलराइजेशन वो जो मैरियट होटल की जो बैलेंस शीट है उसकी बेसिस पे बैंक को लोन ग्रांट कर देना चाहिए, एसडीपीआई प्राइवेट से रिन्यूएबल कंपनी को। उससे क्या बेनिफिट होगा, उससे आपको एडिशनल सिक्योरिटी नहीं चाहिए होगी। देन आपका जो कोर्ट्स है पाकिस्तान में, आप यू वुड बी सरप्राइज टू नो दैट कि लाहौर जैसे सिटी में सिर्फ एक जज है जो कमर्शियल डिस्प्यूट्स देखता है। कमर्शियल मैटर्स के लिए सिर्फ एक जज है, और उसके पास डेली बेसिस पे 100 to 120 केसेस होते हैं। कोर्ट टाइमिंग्स हैं सुबह 8 बजे से लेकर 1 बजे तक। 1 से 2 लंच होता है, लंच जज साहब ने करना होता है 1 से 2। उसके बाद 2 बजे से लेकर फ्रॉम 2 to 4 उन्होंने ऑर्डर डिक्टेट करने होते हैं और साइन करने होते हैं। 4 बजे अदालतें बंद हो जाती हैं। आप मुझे बताएं कि 120 केसेस दिन में एक जज कैसे सुन सकता है? कमर्शियल डिस्प्यूट्स हैं B2B बेसिस पे। जब तक आपकी कोर्ट स्ट्रांग नहीं होंगी आप कुछ भी नहीं कर सकते। आपका रूल ऑफ लॉ नहीं इंप्लीमेंट हो रहा। आपके एग्रीमेंट्स, हम लीगल काउंसिल इंगेज करते हैं, 50-60 लाख रुपए लीगल काउंसिल ले लेते हैं। 40-50 पेज का डॉक्यूमेंट होता है, सारे उसको रिव्यू खुश होते हैं कि हमने एग्रीमेंट साइन कर ली है। जो दूसरा काउंटर पार्ट होता है वो उस एग्रीमेंट को डस्टबिन में फेंक देता है और कोर्ट में चला जाता है। आप कर लें जो कर सकते हैं। 5-5 साल लॉयर्स कहते हैं कि सिविल डिस्प्यूट्स में 5 साल मिनिमम टाइम है सेटल होने के लिए। इसको कैसे करें? एक जज 100 केसेस कैसे सुन सकता है? ये मैटर, जो फ्रॉम इन्वेस्टर्स पॉइंट ऑफ व्यू ये चीजें मैटर करती हैं। लास्ट ईयर 2022 में एक लीगल डिस्प्यूट हुआ। मैंने अपनी सिंगापुर मैनेजमेंट को इन्फॉर्म किया कि सर एक एक्स हमारा जो काउंटर पार्ट है वो कोर्ट में गया, और यू वुड बी सरप्राइज टू नो कि वो खुश हुए। उन्होंने कहा अब मैटर्स रिजॉल्व हो जाएंगे, कोर्ट में चले गए हैं, अब डिसीजन आएगा, हमें कोई इशू नहीं, हमारा के मैटर ठीक है। मैंने अपने लॉयर से बात की। ही इज अ सन ऑफ अ सुप्रीम कोर्ट जज, वो उसके रिटायर्ड सुप्रीम कोर्ट जज। वो बैरिस्टर ने मुझे कहा कि आप सिंगापुर के वाले अपने मैनेजमेंट को इन्फॉर्म करें कि यहाँ पे जज की अंडरस्टैंडिंग पुअर हो सकती है, तो सब कुछ सही भी हो तो डिसीजन गलत आ सकता है। इवन लाहौर इस्लामाबाद में जजेस जो हैं वो उनकी अंडरस्टैंडिंग सिविल जज की इतनी अच्छी नहीं है, तो ये तो एक रिमोट एरिया में के है अब सिविल जज। मैंने उससे पूछा, मैं कहा मैं ये बात कैसे बताऊं सिंगापुर को कि यहाँ पे जज को अंडरस्टैंडिंग पुअर हो सकती है? ये मैटर्स हैं एज ए इन्वेस्टर हमें फेस करने पड़ रहे हैं डे टू डे बेसिस पे। जब तक आप इन चीजों को एड्रेस नहीं करें तब तक आप इन्वेस्टमेंट अट्रैक्ट नहीं कर सकते ग्लोबली। आप देखें इंडिया में ऐसी क्या चीज है कि वहां पे इन्वेस्टर्स चले जाते हैं। वहां पे कितनी कंपनीज हैं जो स्टार्टअप में इन्वेस्ट कर रही हैं, पाकिस्तान में क्यों नहीं कर रही? पाकिस्तान में जो स्टार्टअप कंपनी आप पब्लिश करती है कि जी हमने क्लास ए कैटेगरी हमने अट्रैक्ट कर लिए, फंड्स अट्रैक्ट किए, क्लोज किए हैं, उसके 1 महीने बाद वो बैंक्रप्सी फाइल कर देती है। कहाँ पे गलती है? प्रॉब्लम ये है कि हम लोगों ने यहाँ पे एक इन्वायरमेंट क्रिएट कर दी है कि इन्वेस्टर चोर है और हमें चाहते हैं हम फ्री कैश, जो जिसका बदमाश है ना, जो वो चल रहा है आज पाकिस्तान में।
Arut
आप
sir,
ऑनेस्टली सीधे
just
तरीके से
just
नहीं
if
चल
we
सकते यहाँ
sort
पे।
of summarize it, we can go ahead as well.
थैंक यू।
Thank you so much, Arut sir. Just for perhaps doing a little of bit of course correction as well. I'll be coming to Zainab to sort of go ahead with her interventions. Then we can, Fahim sir will be coming back to you as well.
Thank you so much. I think my respected colleagues and other experts have very aptly pointed out the technical issues that we are facing, and these are not those issues that we are facing recently. These issues have been consistently there for over decades now. So this is not something of a new challenge that we face in terms of energy sector or power sector or anything. And so apart from that, now what I think the focus should be, what is the way forward now from this point? I don't want, I mean, being a Pakistani, being somebody who's very much keenly interested in the sector and working on climate, I don't want us to be discussing these challenges even in next 2 to 3 years. I want us to be discussing those solutions which have been proven, good for the country, or at least not many solutions, but one solution that has, put the country in the right direction. I know that's something of a distant dream, but at least being optimistic for now, because we are expecting some changes in the political arena of the country. So maybe why not discuss those solutions? Now, if I talk about the energy sector, I think globally energy sector has been playing a critical role in shaping the global economy and even the global order, starting from Suez Canal crisis, then the Gulf wars, OPEC countries issues, etc., etc. Now the Russia-Ukraine war. So those are global challenges that on which we have no control. But what about the local issues on which we can control? I've heard my colleague discussing the private sector perspective. Now the issue is कि अगर अभी हम बात करें कि private sector से हमें finance चाहिए. International finance is a challenge now, we do realize that. But now if we talk about the finance हमें चाहिए, तो उन्होंने हाथ खड़े कर दिए हुए. And I know वो बहुत से जगह पे सही है कि उन्होंने हाथ खड़े किए हैं. जाहिर है political instability है, policy inconsistency है, हम कैसे finance करें. उसके लिए now people like us from the civil society need to push the regulators now, the public policy makers now. हमारे पास ये opportunity है, अगले elections होने वाले हैं, हम try भी कर रहे हैं, लेकिन एक aggression चाहिए कि हम कैसे push करें उस चीज को, कि policy makers को इतना push करें कि energy, renewable energy should be your priority, not only the part of your election manifestos, but also the part of your action plan as the next government. We don't know yet who is forming the next government, but whoever does, हमारे पास ये एक प्लान होना चाहिए जो हमें गवर्नमेंट को देना और हमें एग्रेसिवली पुश फॉरवर्ड करना है, जैसे कि ग्लोबली सिविल सोसाइटीज पुश करते हैं गवर्नमेंट्स को कि ये प्लान ऑफ एक्शन हमें नेक्स्ट चाहिए. अपार्ट फ्रॉम दैट, व्हाट गवर्नमेंट और प्राइवेट सेक्टर के लिए पीपीएस का इशू अभी तक है, उस पर कोई कंसिस्टेंसी आ ही नहीं पा रही. प्राइवेट सेक्टर की तरफ से सोलर ऑफ टेक का इशू अभी तक है. वहां पे क्या प्लान्स हैं हमें पता ही नहीं होता, प्राइवेट सेक्टर के क्या प्लान्स हैं. ग्रेजुअली थ्रू देयर एडवर्टाइजमेंट्स एंड ऑल हमें पता लगता रहता है. बट व्हाट अबाउट एट गवर्नमेंट लेवल, क्या होना चाहिए? गवर्नमेंट को बिठाना चाहिए सारे सेक्टर को, सिविल सोसाइटी और प्राइवेट सेक्टर को, विद द हेल्प ऑफ अदर पार्टनर्स, कि वो डिस्कस करें, चॉक आउट करें कि ये हमारे एक्शंस हैं एनडीसीज में, हमने ये प्लान किया हुआ है, हमें नेक्स्ट कॉप पे जाना है, हमें ग्लोबली अपना अकाउंटेबिलिटी देनी है. आप हमें बताएं कि इस साल आपके इस एनर्जी के लिए क्या प्लान्स हैं और आप हमें कैसे सपोर्ट कर सकते हैं. देन बैठ के वो एक प्लान चॉक आउट हो सकता है. इस चीज के लिए भी हमें पुश करना है. वी हैव अ लॉट ऑफ वर्क टू डू नाउ, और हम कर भी रहे हैं, लेकिन आई थिंक इस चीज को मजीद करने की जरूरत है. हमारे जो कुछ एक और इसमें इश्यूज हैं कम्युनिकेशन एंड आउटरीच प्लान्स के. इन टर्म्स ऑफ एनर्जी सेक्टर, यहाँ पे टेक्निकल एक्सपर्ट्स बैठे हुए हैं, बट कंज्यूमर पर्सपेक्टिव से एक कंज्यूमर को नहीं अंडरस्टैंडिंग आती कि इश्यूज क्या है. हर साल बीइंग अ ले मैन, अगर मैं बात करूँ, लोड शेडिंग इज अ की प्रॉब्लम. लोड शेडिंग क्यों है हर साल, क्यों? अभी मैनिफेस्टोज में तो कुछ लोग बात कर रहे हैं सस्ती बिजली देंगे, कैसे देंगे, आप प्लान तो बताएं हमें. So this is from a consumer point of view. मुझे इस चीज पे फोकस करवाना है कि what is your plan, मेरी प्रायोरिटी वो कैसे आएगी. ये सब through efficient communication planning से हो सकता है. Strategizing how we communicate to the consumers, what are the key challenges, a part of losses क्या है. आप अपने एक गांव में रहने वाले बंदे को जिसने अगले इलेक्शन के लिए वोट डालना है, उसको कैसे बताएंगे कि क्या इश्यूज आ रहे हैं and how you need to prioritize your vote. So I think इस टाइम पे ये चीज करने की जरूरत है. और नेक्स्ट टाइम के लिए हमें पता हो कि डेटा एक बहुत बड़ा इशू है. डेटा लॉगिंग हमने कैसे इंश्योर करवानी है इस सेक्टर में, डेटा कलेक्शन कैसे होनी चाहिए. रिन्यूएबल्स फर्स्ट बहुत अच्छा काम कर रहे हैं, प्रॉपर मॉनिटरिंग मॉडलिंग हो रही है, लेकिन नॉट एट अ वास्ट लेवल, दैट इज स्टिल मिसिंग. सो आई थिंक उस चीज के लिए हमें पुश करना चाहिए. डेवलपमेंट पार्टनर्स इज माय लास्ट पॉइंट. डेवलपमेंट पार्टनर्स को जब हम बिठाते हैं इस चीज को डिस्कस करने के लिए, दे से दैट यस वील बी ब्रिंगिंग इन्वेस्टमेंट्स, वील बी डिस्कसिंग विद गवर्नमेंट्स, बट जब तक आपकी गवर्नमेंट के पास प्रॉपर प्लान और रोड मैप नहीं होगा, तब तक डेवलपमेंट पार्टनर्स को वो कैसे कम्युनिकेट कर सकेंगे कि हमें यहाँ पर इन्वेस्टमेंट करवानी है. एंड देन डेवलपमेंट पार्टनर्स की कम्युनिकेशन विद द प्राइवेट सेक्टर, वो बताएं कि हम इन्वेस्टमेंट ला रहे हैं, आपका ये बड़ा मेगा स्केल का प्रोजेक्ट बना रहे हैं, इसकी सस्टेनेबिलिटी के लिए प्राइवेट सेक्टर कैसे रोल प्ले करेगा. सो इट हैज टू बी an all-inclusive approach rather than one-sided. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Zainab, for sort of highlighting this point as well, what CSOs needs to do and what we need to do collectively as well. I think, but just Let me come to Zubair from IDSP. Zubair, you have done some excellent work in the Balochistan. So perhaps Balochistan already has a very good potential for renewable energy as well. So I mean, from the whole investment side of the things, how do you think what perhaps you can briefly highlight what do you think should be the way forward for harnessing that potential as well, and how you can sort of go ahead with attracting more investments into the system as well. So yes, Zubair, thank you so much for joining us. Please go ahead.
Thank you, Obed Saab. Am I audible?
Yes, you're perfectly audible.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Obed साहब, मुझे इनवाइट करने के लिए ऑन बिहाफ ऑफ IDSP आई एम रिप्रेजेंटिंग। मैं सबसे पहले बलूचिस्तान के थोड़े से जो सिनारियोज हैं ओवरव्यू मैं पेश करूं। बलूचिस्तान जो कि 43% ऑफ पाकिस्तान है और 60% अनइलेक्ट्रिफाइड एरिया है इसमें, और जबकि ह्यूज पोटेंशियल है विंड का और सोलर का यहाँ पे। तो इस हालात में जो चैलेंजेस हमने रिसेंटली आइडेंटिफाई किए हैं वो मैं हाईलाइट करूंगा, और उसके बाद मैं एरियाज ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज और जो वे फॉरवर्ड है उस पर बात करूंगा। सबसे पहले यहाँ पे जो चैलेंजेस हैं बलूचिस्तान स्पेसिफिक, यहाँ की जो स्टेबल लीडरशिप यहाँ पे बहुत लैक करती है। सेक्रेटरीज और मिनिस्टर्स खासतौर पर बलूचिस्तान एनर्जी डिपार्टमेंट के वो चेंज होते रहते हैं, तो जिसकी वजह से लॉन्ग टर्म जो ऑब्जेक्टिव्स हैं वो अचीव नहीं हो पाते। एनर्जी लैंडस्केप बहुत ही यहाँ पे डिस्टर्ब है। यहाँ पे पॉलिटिकल विल नहीं होता, जो कि लिमिटेड विजन है रिन्यूएबल्स के लिए, यहाँ सोलर और विंड के खास तौर पे। और एनर्जी ट्रांजिशंस यहाँ पे एक मिथ है, एनर्जी ट्रांजिशंस के बारे में सोचना या डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड एनर्जी को हार्नेस करना, ऑफ ग्रिड्स के बारे में। यहाँ पे सिर्फ मतलब सोलर्स और स्ट्रीट लाइट्स को सोलराइज करने में ये इनका विजन है, जो कि बहुत ही लिमिटेड है। एक चीज़ यहाँ पे कैपेसिटी बिल्डिंग के बहुत ज़्यादा इश्यूज हैं, टेक्निकल ह्यूमन रिसोर्स की ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस में बिल्कुल ना होने के बराबर है। तो ये प्लानिंग और पॉलिसी ड्राफ्ट करने में ये बहुत बड़ा हिंडर है। IG सेप और LOIs को अपने मैच्योर करना, जीरो होमवर्क्स यहाँ से है, और कम्युनिटी के जो नीड्स हैं, ग्राउंड रियलिटीज़ हैं, वो हमारे पॉलिसी लेवल पे, इस्लामाबाद लेवल पे वो रिफ्लेक्ट नहीं हो पाते। तो जिसकी वजह से बलूचिस्तान आज इतना पावर सेक्टर में बहुत पीछे रहा है। और लिमिटेड हमारे पास टेक्नोलॉजी सिस्टम्स है, खासकर जो कैस्को है डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन जो कंपनी यहाँ पे देख रही है, ओल्ड सिस्टम्स हैं वहाँ के सारे, मैनुअली वो क्या करते हैं, वो बिलिंग वगैरह करते हैं, जिसकी वजह से यहाँ के जो ट्यूबवेल्स लोड है 73% लोड ट्यूबवेल्स एग्री जो लोड है वो उनके अगेंस्ट ओवर चार्जिंग वो करते हैं। हमने ग्राउंड रियलिटीज में देखा भी इस तरह। तो लॉ एंड ऑर्डर सिचुएशंस की वजह से बहुत ज़्यादा इश्यूज हैं, सिक्योरिटी कंसर्न्स, बिलिंग ना हो पाना, इन्वेस्टर्स अट्रैक्ट नहीं हो पाते। तो ये कुछ सिनारियोज हैं। एक बहुत बड़ा फाइनेंशियल यहाँ पे इशू है, जो सब्सिडी बर्डन है। एक यहाँ पे एग्रीकल्चर ट्यूबवेल्स को एक सब्सिडी मिलती है, तो वो नॉन पेमेंट ऑफ बिलिंग का रीजन भी एक ये है, और यहाँ पे फाइनेंशियली बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है। तो ये जितने भी चैलेंजेस हैं खास तौर पे सोलर के हवाले से, वो सोलराइज नहीं हो पाते, जो हमारे चैलेंजेस बर्डन है वो सोलराइज नहीं हो पा रहे। तो ये कुछ चैलेंजेस हैं जो मैंने हाईलाइट किए। इसी को देखते हुए ये कुछ एरियाज ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज और वे फॉरवर्ड्स की तरफ हम रिसर्च स्टडी के मुताबिक अगर देखा जाए तो डेवलपमेंट हमारी यूटिलिटी स्केल के जो प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं RE के, खास तौर पे जो आने वाले हैं, अभी गवादर हमारे पास 5 सालों में, और रिकोदिक हमारे पास आ रहा है, ये यूटिलिटी स्केल के प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं। तो इनके ऊपर हमें वे फॉरवर्ड एक मिलता है, एक एरिया ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी मिलता है जिसको हम जिस पे हम काम कर सकें। और स्टेयरिंग कमेटी यहाँ पे हम इस साल, आने वाले साल में हम काम कर रहे हैं कि एक स्टेयरिंग कमेटी बन जाए न्यू, या जो पुरानी हमारी 2007 की पॉलिसी के तहत एक स्टेयरिंग कमेटी थी जो पावर सेक्टर को देखती थी, और उसके जो होमवर्क्स थे या डेवलपमेंट या फैसले करने वाले लोग थे वो उनको वापस रिवाइव किया जाए, क्योंकि जो लैक ऑफ लीडरशिप वाली जो चैलेंज था उनको टैकल करने के लिए हम इस पे काम करें। और कैटेगरी 3 के जो प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं अभी 2024 के बिडिंग्स होंगे, तो उसमें हमारे जो प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं बलूचिस्तान के बहुत कम है, और उनके लिए हम होमवर्क और इन्वेस्टर्स को कैसे अट्रैक्ट करने की पे लगे उस पर काम करें, और लो कॉस्ट और रिलायबल एनर्जी की तरफ, ट्रांजिशन की तरफ मूव करें। एक और हमारे पास एरिया ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटी है कि बलूचिस्तान क्योंकि ज्योग्राफिकल थोड़ी सी यूनिक ज्योग्राफी है, तो यहाँ पे ग्रिड के एक्सेस, जैसे कि मैंने पहले बताया कि 60% अनइलेक्ट्रिफाइड एरिया है और 40% पीपल सिर्फ ग्रिड से बिजली ले रहे हैं यहाँ पे बलूचिस्तान में। तो डिस्ट्रीब्यूटेड जो एनर्जी प्रोजेक्ट्स हैं उन पे हम काम कर सकते हैं, पब्लिक और प्राइवेट पार्टनरशिप के थ्रू मिनी ग्रिड्स को, ऑफ ग्रिड्स को और 100% इलेक्ट्रिसिटी एक्सेस को और इन्वेस्टर्स को अट्रैक्ट करने के लिए हम ये काम कर सकते हैं। इससे ये भी होगा कि जो फाइनेंशियल क्राइसिस है, बर्डन जो बलूचिस्तान गवर्नमेंट और फेडरल गवर्नमेंट पे सब्सिडी का है, वो भी ओवरकम कर सकते हैं। और एक बहुत बड़ा जो मैंने हाईलाइट किया था, रिजॉल्विंग द ट्यूबवेल्स का जो इशू है, बर्डन है गवर्नमेंट पर भी और डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन नेटवर्क पर भी, और उनको इलेक्ट्रिसिटी एक्सेस नहीं होती जो एग्रीकल्चर यूजर्स हैं, तो उनको सोलराइजेशन की तरफ लेकर जाने के लिए इसमें फाइनेंशियल एक बहुत बड़ा चैलेंज है। फाइनेंशियल मॉडल्स जहाँ बात भी हुई, मुस्तफ़ा साहब ने जो कहा और अकील जाफरी साहब ने जो हाईलाइट किया कि सोलराइजेशन और फाइनेंशियल मॉडल्स को अट्रैक्ट करने के लिए हमारी जो पॉलिसी फ्रेमवर्क है इस पे हम काम करें और लोन सिस्टम्स या फाइनेंशियल मॉडल्स इंट्रोड्यूस करें कि ये ओवरबर्डन जो सिस्टम्स हैं इन पे हम काम कर सकें। तो ये बलूचिस्तान स्पेसिफिक कुछ चैलेंजेस और कुछ एरियाज ऑफ अपॉर्चुनिटीज मैंने रखे हैं आपके सामने। थैंक यू सो मच।
Yes, thank you so much, Zubair, and thank you also for the wonderful work you have been doing in Balochistan as well. So I think we have discussed a lot about the solar and wind side of the things, but we do have colleagues sitting here from Water and Power Development Authority, WAPDA, as well. So, sir, in light of this discussion, if you'd like to highlight any point from your end.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Thank you for inviting me, WAPDA, to this event, and it is really very informative. Just I wanted to add some positive note about Pakistan and especially the financing available to us and the trust which is being shown by different multilateral financial institutions regarding WAPDA projects. WAPDA was established in 1958 by the Act of Parliament. Till now, we have installed and we are under O&M. These projects are under O&M. Hurdle projects, 9,459 megawatt. Till 2029, we will add renewable energy in the form of hurdle projects, about 9,000 to 10,000 megawatts. Those projects are Basha, Mamand, Dasu, and some other projects. Now, the financing is available from World Bank, from AFD, from KfW, and from USAID. So I think the situation is not that bleak, and we hope that with the passage of time, the situation will improve. And one thing other that due to these hurdle projects, we are able to produce very cheap electricity that adds in the overall basket rate a very positive effect. So that was my humble submission. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. So if any of our colleagues, Dr. Saab or Basit, if you'd like to add to anything as well, please. Sure, please.
Explain I think you can probably park this question and let Basit and Dr. Saab speak first.
Will be coming.
Thank you for a wonderful discussion so far. इसमें मेरा थोड़ा सा different view है कि we should not look for easy way out. अब easy way out हमने क्या लिया है कि we had a target के renewable energies को हमने 30% तक करना है. फिर हमने थोड़े अर्से बाद कह दिया जी हाइडल हमारा रिन्यूएबल है. दैट वाज द इजी वे आउट. आप स्टिक करें, हाँ जी हमने सोलर लगाना है, हमने विंड लगाना है, आप टारगेट से शॉर्ट भी होंगे बट you've got a set target. अब क्योंकि हमने कह लिया जी हाइडल इज रिन्यूएबल, ये इस टर्म से मुझे प्रॉब्लम हो जाती है. हालांकि हाइडल इज अ वेरी गुड सोर्स ऑफ एनर्जी, वो आपकी कंट्री की डेवलपमेंट के लिए बहुत अच्छा है, बट वंस आप कह देते हैं वो रिन्यूएबल है और वो हमारे 30% टारगेट शेयर फुलफिल करने के लिए हमने यूज़ करना है, तो वी आर ऑलरेडी देयर. फिर हमें रिन्यूएबल्स पे काम करने की ज़रूरत नहीं है.
तो ये हमें थोड़ी सी क्लैरिटी होनी चाहिए। सेकेंडली, अभी ये बलूचिस्तान से जो कनेक्ट हुए थे, उन्होंने कहा था जी बलूचिस्तान क्योंकि अंडर डेवलप्ड है, डाटा लॉगिंग मैनुअल हो रही है। तो आई नो फॉर अ फैक्ट आईएसको के कुछ स्टेशन इस्लामाबाद में जहाँ पे अभी तक मैनुअल लॉगिंग होती है डाटा की, क्योंकि हमारी टीम के कुछ मेंबर्स अब वो डाटा को डिजिटाइज कर रहे हैं। तो दैट इज अनदर कंसर्न कि हमें डिजिटाइज करने डाटा थ्रू आउट, कि वो हर किसी के यूज़ के लिए अवेलेबल हो एट एनी गिवन टाइम। ये ना हमने कोई प्रोजेक्ट करना है, हमें डाटा चाहिए, फिर आप बैठ के 2 महीने लगाएं जी डाटा अवेलेबल करें सबके लिए। और लास्टली जो बात हुई थी ग्रेड्स के ऊपर, यस ग्रेड्स हमें इम्प्रूव करने हैं, लेकिन उसके साथ हम जो पाकिस्तान में भी सिस्टम चल रहा है कि यूनिफॉर्म टैरिफ्स थ्रू आउट, वो नहीं हो सकता या होना नहीं चाहिए, सस्टेनेबल नहीं है। ग्रिड के टैक्स वर्ल्ड ओवर ऐड होते हैं, तो जो लोग एनर्जी सोर्सेज से दूर रहते हैं, दे हैव टू पे मोर फॉर इलेक्ट्रिसिटी, जो करीब रह रहे हैं उन्हें कम देना पड़ता है। हमें सिमिलर मॉडल पाकिस्तान में अपनाना चाहिए कि थोड़ा स्टेबल हो। थैंक यू।
Yes, thank you,
To
Dr. Sir.
add one
Please,
point.
please, go ahead, sir.
Globally, hurdle is renewable energy.
Well noted, sir. No worries. So, Basit, please. Go ahead.
So yeah, I think we have done a good stock taking of the challenges, perhaps, and I think mostly जो discussion on the solutions आई थी वो एक एहतसाम and from the industry side अदूद साहब and फहीम साहब लेकर आए थे. So I would like to expand a little bit on the solutions part as well, because हम लोग problems से तो बड़े आ जाते हैं, solutions पे हमारे पास नहीं आते हैं. And I would like to put it into 2 buckets for now, जो मुझे भी समझ आ रही है कि हम किस तरीके से solutions को ढूंढ रहे हैं. एक वो है हमारी स्ट्रैटेजी के वी एज साम वाज टॉकिंग अबाउट कि यार दिस इज करंट लैंडस्केप, ये हमारे कंस्ट्रेंट्स हैं, इन कंस्ट्रेंट्स के अंदर मैंने अपना सोल्यूशन फाइंड करना. आई एम एक्सेप्टिंग कि मेरा इंटरेस्ट रेट क्या है, आई एम एक्सेप्टिंग कि मार्केट कंडीशंस क्या है, आई एम एक्सेप्टिंग कि गवर्नमेंट के जो डायरेक्शन है वो वैसी रहनी है. उसके दरमियान आई एम ट्राइंग टू फाइंड अ विद इन इनोवेटिव फाइनेंसिंग मैकेनिज्म्स, एंड जिस तरीके से फहीम साहब कह रहे थे वी आर ब्रिंगिंग अ पीपीए मॉडल्स एंड दोस थिंग्स. And then there is another side where we are trying to break those constraints, जैसे अरूद साहब बात कर रहे थे, going to the core of the problem, litigation issues and things like that, and that's a more idealistic approach. But at the same time, it's a pragmatic approach to go towards, working within the constraints. So ये दोनों buckets हैं, I'm not saying which is the right and wrong, but just to make it clear, I think हमें दोनों को realize करना चाहिए, both of them exist, both of them are the part of the solution. And while having that long term view कि हमने ये litigation issues, हमने अपना जो market का जो interest rate है उसको handle करना, macro economic situation को improve करना, circular debt को, transmission को बढ़ाना, all of these things are the long term view that we need to go towards. Meanwhile हम short term कुछ steps करने हैं which should be हमें अपनी direction ठीक करनी है. अच्छा, सेकंड पॉइंट आई थिंक जो मेजर मुझे जो यहाँ पे लगता है, आई थिंक हमारी प्रीवियसली भी अभी एक इवेंट हो रहा था उसमें भी आई हाईलाइटेड दैट कि हमें एक चीज़ करने की ज़रूरत है. इन सब चीज़ों में हमें अपने प्रिंसिपल्स और अपने रोल्स डिफाइन करने की बड़ी शदीद ज़रूरत है. आई थिंक मुस्तफ़ा ने भी मेंशन किया था कि रोल ऑफ द गवर्नमेंट रिगार्डिंग मार्केट सपोर्ट. ठीक है, प्राइमरी रोल जो है वो आपके पास एक जो एंटिटी है द गवर्नमेंट, द पॉलिसी मेकर्स का, वो मार्केट सपोर्ट का, इट्स नॉट फॉर द प्रोजेक्ट डेवलपमेंट. अनफॉर्चुनेटली हमारे चाहे आप पॉलिटिशियंस कह लें, चाहे आप हमारे public office holders कह लें, they have been more concerned with adding like this much generation of this project into the market, into the system, rather than concerned about what the market would look like 20-30 years ahead. So I think हमें जो इस वक्त मेजर टेक अवे इस वक्त जो करने की जरूरत है वो अपनी उस स्ट्रैटेजी को एटलीस्ट अब जाके ठीक कर लें. आफ्टर we have been through this all almost like the biggest macroeconomic crunch that we have right now. So हम एटलीस्ट अपनी स्ट्रैटेजी ठीक कर लें कि यार now we should no more talk about projects. And unfortunately I still see कि we are still concerned with 600 megawatt का project आगे कराना है, unfortunately, which is a good project in itself, but that's not the role. The role should be to put up the regulations, the same effort that I'm putting on 3 times or 4 times publishing the same project again and trying to navigate what's the right way. That's one place that you can work upon, but I would rather have the same effort done on the CTBCM part, to pushing through it, to finding the solution wherever it exists, to negotiating with the private sector that come on the table and let's find an optimum solution. And that has been left over for 1.5 years and still not decided. I would rather, put my efforts towards putting up a plan जो कि हमारा TCEP आना था, still not here. Last year का IGCEP हमारा miss हो गया. I mean, it was a good practice that we started, but we were supposed to continue it. So I think we need to realize एक बिल्कुल core के level पे कि what is the role of all these organizations, of the governing bodies, and it's just to last part. It's not just something अभी recently SOE law भी introduced हुआ. It's not just something जो कि मैं ऐसे कह रहा हूँ. Now it is legal thing that the role of these entities is for the market support mechanism. It's very clearly written within that SOE law as well. So I think हमें जो है अपनी direction at a bare minimum ठीक कर लेनी चाहिए. बाकी I think very good suggestions from all the.
Yes, thank you. Thank you so much, Basit. I think just take me one more question and then we'll be coming to you to respond to that, and then we'll be coming to Badasab. So, Farooq Mia Sab, you sort of raised your hand. So if you have any questions, please feel free to
Yeah. Thank you for giving me the floor. You know, I have been an international development banker for many years. So I will give you the investment perspective. You know, a lot of points were raised about difficulty of bringing investment into the energy sector of Pakistan. Actually, you cannot look at the energy sector in isolation from the overall investment scenario of the country. So the energy sector is equally affected. I think that problem will continue to remain as long as the international investors continue to perceive us as near insolvency. As you know, that the Pakistan investment bond has a nearly junk status. And even the MSCI index, the Pakistan fund, you know, it has basically collapsed. I think the thing is that I think we need to mobilize financing internally. And the example of Sapphire and Gul Ahmed and all those are very nice examples, but those were in good days. I think at this time, if we look at the rooftop solar, this has, I mean, there are no firm figures on how much rooftop has been installed until now, but assuming it's 1,000 megawatt. And given, you know, the average per megawatt cost of financing, so the country has from domestic households mobilized nearly $1.5 billion in the last 5-7 years. That potential, I think there's a lot of money, you know, in the domestic households, which is looking for channels. A lot of people want to avoid fixed interest schemes. We haven't had a stock take of the entire rooftop solar program. I mean, there are no the results, the challenges, the difficulties, and what needs to be done. I think at this point, if we as a country do that analysis, you know, I think we can set a new direction and we can mobilize more money from the domestic household. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Atif Saab. So I think I'll be coming to the question that Badar Saab raised as well, and it's Sham or Mustafa, if you'd like to respond, please.
Yeah, so regarding the question on why the financing peaked in 2015 and then there was a downward trend. So essentially there was a pipeline that was built from the start of the last decade. The projects started to unbundle around 2013, 14 and 15 where it peaked. Afterwards, there was a shift towards thermal plants. The policy shifted. To summarize this, the government pulled the plug on the RE sector. And that's why we were emphasizing on the fact that there needs to be policy consistency. You cannot halfway through a sector that's peaking, you cannot pull the plug on that. And then after a decade, figure out a way to revive that. So you have already pulled the plug on a sector. You have I'd say that this was a policy disaster. Our sector was peaking, but you could not continue with it because your policy outlook was, you were short-sighted, your policy outlook was not stable. and this has caused the renewable sector financing to drop in the past 2 to 3 years. So yeah, that's the answer.
Yes, thank you. Zinia, if you'd like to jump in, you were wanting to add a couple of points as well, and then we'll be coming to Badasa. Yes.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. This is Zinia Shaukat from the Knowledge Forum. It's a wonderful, insightful discussion, and thank you for making us a part of it. मैं सिर्फ एक पॉइंट पिक करना चाहती हूँ यहाँ पर जो बात हो रही है कि household are the largest consumers of electricity, which is completely true. And I think renewables के context में there is a very important role that households can play, which was also just touched upon by a recent in a recent comment. कि households, as consumers of energy, but also producer of energy, in the, in the way rooftop solar is utilized. I think ये एक concept है जो हम completely जिसको ignore कर रहे हैं, और especially यहाँ पर जब बात होती है कि solar का uptake किस तरह shape up हुआ है पाकिस्तान में, और उसमें जो major challenge सामने आता है वो ये है कि financing की difficulty है, एक्सेस के मसाइल हैं, या स्टैंडर्डाइजेशन की कमी है. लेकिन हमारा ये समझना है कि अगर हाउस होल्ड बिगेस्ट कंज्यूमर है तो अर्बन हाउस होल्ड आर एक्चुअली द लार्जेस्ट कंज्यूमर्स. एंड अर्बन हाउस होल्ड की सबसे बड़ी मुश्किल स्पेस का ना होना है, विच इज़ आई थिंक अ फैक्ट दैट इज़ ओवरलुक्ड. स्पेशली हमारी जो अर्बन प्लानिंग है, हमारी अर्बन रेगुलेशन है, दैट हैज़ नॉट इनकॉर्पोरेटेड renewables at any point in terms of how housing is designed, how housing societies are work in urban settings. So I think कि हम इस बात पे ज़रूर वो करें कि renewables के context में it is very very important कि urban planning को भी review किया जाए और उसमें renewables को facilitate करने का एक उनसर शामिल किया जाए. I'll stop here. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Zinia. And I think we did have a raised hand, but just if you just sort of put your question in the chat box, and we'll send it to the relevant speakers, and speaker can get back to you over the email as well. I think just in the interest of time, we had a very good discussion. So with this, I'll be coming to Badr Alam Saab, the CEO of Policy Research Institute for Equitable Development, Pride, for his concluding remarks. So yes, Badr Saab, over to you. Thank you. If I can request IT team to sort of display the pictures as well.
Thank you. Well, I have like 8 pages of notes, so give me like 8 hours to read them out. I'll try to be short, but I have a lot of like probing questions that I think were needed during such a consultation, and because of focus was most on the financial side, we have left them out. So I'll try to bring some attention towards those questions. So kindly look at the photo that you see here. It's a photo from Thar. It does not look like Thar from the greenery that you see. It doesn't look like Thar from the road that you see, but it still is Thar because the cows that you see are only found in Thar. And you see the small solar panel on the back of the person. What is he using it for? He is using it for listening to radio. This small panel is allowing him to provide energy to the radio that he is using while grazing his cattle. This photo will stay here, and I'll get back to it, continuously get back to it while I'm talking. I think there are a number of issues that we have heard from all the people taking part in this consultation about financing not being available, investors not being facilitated by the government, economic policies and financial policies not being consistent. While all these complaints and all these problems are there, I think there is a fundamental flaw in this discourse that we see the government or the state sector only as a facilitator and enabler for the private businesses, whereas the government or the private sector, government or the state sector should be the enabler for the whole of the society. We should not talk about only the ease of doing business. We should be talking about the ease of living an easy and comfortable life for every citizen in this country. We should also not just talk about the private profits that people can make. We should also talk about the public good that state should ensure. If you can display that other slide. I'm showing you a slide from a study done on how the American government is investing. And if you see this slide, this is not about Pakistan. This is about the most free economy that you can see under the sun. It is about the United States of America. And they are saying that we need to invest public funds in the energy sector so that the energy sector prospers. While we are entirely relying on the private businesses and private finances for promoting our energy sector, this cannot happen. The person in Thar who is holding that small solar PV panel on his back needs some kind of a stimulant or some kind of a support from the government. So what does the government do, or what should the government do? Government does everything that it should not. For instance, it builds dams in Damir and Bhasha. For instance, it develops solar projects in Bahawalpur. For instance, it invests a lot of good money in the bad project that it has already been doing. For instance, raising the height of Tarbela and Mangla and drowning, further more populations under the water. So government should not be doing that. And the government does whatever it should not do. We have already been clear on that. And it does not do what it should do. Like, for instance, what it should do. People here on this, around this table, mostly are from the era of 1990s and 2000s. You were in school and colleges in the 90s and 2000s. And I am assuming, hopefully I'm wrong, that most of you studied in private colleges. People in my generation, all of them went to public sector schools. The government is not investing a penny in education. So where do we get the engineers and the bankers and the finance experts who will run all this? And all of that has been left to private profits. So that is where the government investments, the public sector investment should go, leading the skill levels or the human resource level of the country to such a point where they become automatic magnets for investments. Everybody talks about India. What India has done since 1950s is setting up IITs, which are institution of technology or something like that. And they were set up in 1950s. And coming to Pakistan, okay, we talk a lot about development versus investment. Pakistan's first sort of an IIT was set up in Karachi in IBA. Do you know who financed that? The US aid. So forget about not having the development aid coming into Pakistan. Pakistan cannot move forward without that development aid. And that's not a bad thing. We have done some good projects with that kind of aid, unless that aid is tied to some political conditionalities that are harmful for our society. Unless that aid comes with some strings that really stifle us as a society and as a political economy. So these are the things that are the broader perspective that we need to look into. And this, unfortunately, is also an indirect comment on what my respected colleague Khalid said, that as a political economist, he would say, free market. Let the market decide. So when people in the market enter into business contracts, they still have legal fights. Who will decide those legal fights? If we let the market decide, will the market also decide those conflicts? And also the market in a imperfect society will always be very, very imperfect. How do markets work? Well, markets work on the basis of free flow of information. Is free flow of information possible in a society like Pakistan? We have here talked about PPAs not being transparent, data not being available, data still being manually logged. In such an information, the information flow is so imperfect that you can never create a perfect market. So we cannot leave this country to the market alone. And wherever we have left things to the market, things have gone to the dogs. You can pick up examples from Indonesia and from so many other countries where market just was allowed to run amok and it create havoc. And so as a consequence, we need to have a very strong regulation. And when it comes to regulation, government does not do what it should be doing. For instance, we have all talked about rooftop solar and all those things. And most of the rooftop solar, as all of you are more experts than I am, can verify is coming through smuggled routes. So where is the government that should be stopping all that? And as a consequence of that smuggling, there is no regulation of the quality of that equipment. I can give you the example of a Karachi hospital, which I cannot name because the person who told me about this also did not name initially in public. They wanted to have the rooftop solar on for their entire facility. And they approached the private developer and said, okay, fix the solars on our hospital. And they were promised that it will produce certain amount of energy and with this amount of investment. And they made that investment. And when they installed those panels, the amount of energy it produced was only 10% of the promised, capacity. So all that money was gone wasted, So that is where the government needs to come in to ensure the quality of the stuff that is being sold or that is being available in the country. If you take a lot of loan from a bank to put up a rooftop solar and then you go to the market and end up getting a very low quality solar, where will you pay it back from? And then there are so many other issues. But what I'm highlighting is that the government needs to focus on developing the society and on a whole, including the markets, not just the markets and leaving the society away. The government needs to invest in, take a whole of a society approach, not just like a sector specific approach. Unless the government takes a whole of a society approach, we cannot, succeed. We will only partially succeed. Okay, this success or this project worked and that project worked. And then there'll be, millions of other things that we will never be able to fix. So I think as a renewable energy coalition, we should be, advocating or asking the government to take a whole of a society approach when it comes to the energy sector. And that means that we need to electrify houses that are not still electrified in Sindh and Balochistan and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And energy, justice should be ensured. And the skill level of people working in the energy sector should be enhanced through investment in their education. And the government should invest a lot of effort and time and resources in independent, strong, and reliable regulation. Thank you.
Yes, thank you so much, Barasa, for your excellent concluding and showing that the overall landscape needs to be people centric. So again, with this, I will be coming to end, but let me just quickly check if Akil Jafri Saab wants to highlight something from his end as well, and then we can sort of end this up. So Akil Saab, are you with us? Okay, so if anyone here has any last comments to end? Anyone? Okay. So once again, thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Assam, for such a wonderful presentation, and everyone for definitely highlighting the challenges and more importantly, the solutions and the recommendations coming out of it. So on behalf of, again, Pakistan Renewable Energy Coalition, I would like to thank you all, especially Saleha and Sana, for putting all this together as well. And with this, we'll be coming to the end of this session. Do join us for a lunch. If anyone has any further discussions, we can do over the lunch break as well. And thank you so much for everyone joining us online. Thank you. Khuda Hafiz.